Hey guys, welcome to your next video in the Crushing Your Health Goals series, or any goal for that matter. In the first video, I told you there are typically 6 things that you want to focus on that are probably one or more of those things have been lacking in the past if you haven't achieved your goal. And in one video, I talked about motivation and discipline. The last video, I talked about clarity of vision for your end goal. And today I'm going to talk about another thing that people miss, and that is planning. So planning a strategy and having systems in place for achieving that goal. And so that's the first point, is when it comes to planning, most people lack systems. They have no system in place to carry out the action steps that are going to be necessary to achieve that goal. So systems are critical. You may have heard people talk about in business that systems equal success. So without a system, it's very hard to kind of have that plan be executed. So that's the first thing. Another thing that happens when it comes to planning is people focus on that big goal. Whether it's a business goal, a health goal, they've got this big thing, like let's say I want to lose 30 pounds. You know, that's the big goal. That's the end state that they want to be ending up in. And so that's where their focus is, but they don't make mini goals along the way. So it would be like trying to go to New York and you're living down in South Texas. New York is going to take a long time to get those. So the bigger the goal, the further distance you are from your goal, the longer it may take to get there. So not having some mini goals in place, kind of some data points, if you will, along the way, is going to disrupt your chances at keeping the commitment and perseverance, because it's taking so long to get to that goal. So putting some mini goals in place along the way, like, oh, we made it this far. Oh, we made it to Oklahoma, or whatever the next state may be. That's, you know, and celebrating that goal along the way is an easier path to getting your goal. I'll talk about the tools in a little bit. But the next thing that happens with planning, or lack thereof, is that you have no plan for the inevitable challenges that are going to come your way. So again, if I set my GPS to New York and I'm all the way down south, you know, there's going to be things that come up. There's going to be challenges that come up. Traffic, detours, road construction, all kinds of stuff. So if you don't plan ahead for that and have some sort of strategic system in place of how you're going to handle that, that could throw you off track if that's like coming out of nowhere. So you know there's going to be challenges, you know there's going to be obstacles. Making a plan, having that part of your plan in place is really, really important. And then along with the mini goals, I talked about, you really want to celebrate those wins, and people don't celebrate it. It becomes this kind of thing like, again, if you're trying to lose weight and it's like, oh, I'm trying to lose 30 pounds, and someone says, hey, yeah, you look like you lost weight. Oh, but yeah, but it's still, I still got a long ways to go. I still got that. It's like your brain locks on to how you're not there yet. So having those mini goals in place and celebrating those wins is a really good strategy to help keep you on your path and keep the momentum going in order to keep you going in the direction you want to get your goal. So let's talk about some tools. How do we ensure that we have a good plan in place? Well, knowing the end destination I talked about before, knowing what that's going to look like, having a clear vision of what that looks like. Now we step back and we outline the necessary steps, the action steps that are going to take to get there. I mentioned in the first video how you have the general and the soldier, and the soldier has to listen to the general. Well, this is where the general comes into play right now. The general is going to come up with a strategic plan to provide the path to reaching that final outcome. So this is where you come up with that plan. What action steps do I need to take to get there? You can have daily actions, you can have monthly actions, you can have, you know, in between action steps, things that don't have to be done every day. But, you know, for example, again, let's say I'm just using losing weight as a goal because a lot of people are always focused on that, at least in my line of work especially. So let's say your goal is to lose weight. You've come up with the why you're doing that. You've come up with the, you know, your other things that we've talked about in other videos. Now we have to come up with a plan. But how do you break that down into daily action steps? Well, one thing is you're going to have to pay attention to what you're eating. Maybe you weren't paying attention before. I was talking about a new mindset in the last video, coming at it from a new mindset. So you're going to have to pay attention to what you're eating. That's a broad action step. But then there can be clearly defined action steps like I am going to eat this many calories a day, or I am going to cut sugar for this period of time. I am going to add vegetables in place of this. You know, it can be unique to you, but you have to come up with the specific action steps that you can take daily to achieve that goal. So you come up with your strategy. Now, come up with the action steps, the overall action steps, and then break those down into daily action steps, weekly action steps. If losing weight is part of your plan, then maybe you decide, hey, I need to go to the gym or be doing some sort of physical activity 3 days a week, 4 days a week, whatever it's going to be for you. I need to take a walk every single day. Whatever yours is, you want to have those broken down, the steps be broken down into daily or weekly actions. Now, you also want to create a system to celebrate your wins. So I'm going to give you an example of something I did. When I decided I needed to go to the gym and do a specific type of strength training 4 days a week, I didn't miss it. I still haven't missed it, and it's been 1.5 years. I haven't missed one of those days because of this strategy I put in place for myself. I got myself a calendar, and I got some stars, and I put stars on. There had to be 4 stars every week by the end of the week on that calendar. I visually put it up in my kitchen where I could see it. I didn't have it on my phone. I didn't have it mentally. I had actually a hard calendar with stars on it. I still have it, where I could see 4 stars per week. Those are called streaks. You know, you see that stuff, streaks in Snapchat all the time. You see people having streaks. It's to keep the momentum going. You don't want to break your streak. That for me is a great strategy, because sometimes there's times I don't want to go to the gym, and I seriously, like, the only thing that gets me there is not breaking my streak, because I've had a streak going for 1.5 years without fail. So that's a system that will help you celebrate those wins. When I might have an overall big goal, but I'm celebrating the fact that I've got 4 stars every week. That to me is exciting, or even a star that day. So have a celebration of these mini goals. My mini goal is to work out 4 days a week. That's my mini goal. I'm not worried about my overall plan to build strength or where I want to be in terms of health. My mini goal, where I'm focusing daily and weekly, is on that action step. So when I see that I've achieved that, I celebrate that win. Decide what the celebration is going to be. It doesn't have to be a huge celebration. Some people think, oh, I'm going to celebrate with food. I'm going to celebrate with something that actually disrupts their overall plan. It doesn't lead the direction they want to go. So by celebrating your wins, I mean, it's a simple pat on the back. It's a simple like, hey, good job. I did it. I did it again this week. I did it again today. It doesn't have to be some thing that like disrupts you from your goal. It can just be an acknowledgement that, hey, I'm making progress. And so that's where you want to put your focus. You want to put your focus on the action steps rather than the end result, especially if it's far away. So again, it's like I said, if you set your GPS to New York, you know that's where you're headed. You know that's the final destination. But you don't get in your car and just think about New York, New York, New York, New York. You think about the road in front of you and the next path. If your GPS says you're going to go this way for 20 miles and then you're going to take that exit, that's what you're focused on at that time. You're not focused on the whole path to New York and getting to New York. You're focused on that next action to lead you to that place. And then overall, you've got New York in mind, right? You might assess, hey, you know, how much time do we have left, type of thing. But that's an overall thing that's permeating your mindset as the final destination. That's why I say get a symbol. Get a symbol that you can keep in front of you, a picture or something that defines that's where I'm going. On the GPS, it's like, oh, that gives you the time. How long till you get there? There it is. It's in front of me all the time. I know how much time till I get there, but I'm focused on the next step. So that is really, really important. The next thing is you want to anticipate the obstacles that are going to come your way and decide how you're going to handle them. So in other words, going back again to the weight loss or health goal, do I have some parties coming up? Do I have some social situations that are coming up? You know, how am I going to handle that? Do I have a system in place that if I get in a place where I have no control over my food, if I get in a situation where I'm not going to be able to go to the gym, what do I do in these situations? How are you going to handle that? You got to come up with that stuff ahead of time. Now, of course, there's going to be emergency situations that come up that you might not know what to do in that moment. And that's where I want to talk about having a bounce back strategy in place or a course correction in place. That's what I call that. There are actually two different things. A bounce back strategy for me is I got off track. How am I going to get back on track as quickly as possible? Like, what is my strategy for that? So I want you to have a bounce back strategy in place. Let's say you got off course, which I'll talk about in a minute, and now your normal MO is to beat yourself up and to feel bad and to feel shame about not doing what you said you were going to do, not staying on course. How do you bounce back from that instead of staying off course? You bounce back by having something in place that allows you to, boom, get right back on track. It could be simply self-talk. It can be saying, you know what, I'm not going to do that. That's my old MO. That's my old mindset. Going back to the mindset stuff. Who are you going to be now? The new mindset is, you know what, when I get off track, I reassess, which I'll talk about how to do that in a second. And how do I, that's my strategy. My self-talk is going to be my strategy. If it's like you go down a depressive path, that's usually what happens to you, then maybe saying, you know what, when I feel myself going down that depressive track, I'm going to put on some music that I love, that makes me feel up, that makes me feel good, that reminds me of a time in my life that felt great. That could be one thing. It could be, you know what, I'm going to immediately go to do something I love to do. Maybe you love to garden. Maybe you love to take walks. Maybe you love to be in nature. Whatever it is, that's your bounce back. You're going to immediately do that. I know for me, if I start going down a negative path, it usually starts in my thinking. I will immediately make sure that I'm feeding myself nutrient-dense food, mental food. That's what I call that. Nutrient-dense mental food, which means I'm going to start listening to motivating speakers. I'm going to start listening to motivating podcasts. I'm going to start, meditation is a big thing for me. So I might go into a meditation where I kind of realign myself and start paying attention to my inner world at that point. So that's another way to do it. So whatever your bounce back strategy is, you want to know what that's going to be ahead of time. How do you change your mood mentally and emotionally as quickly as possible? And then I want to talk about what a course correction is. So let's say you got off track, like I was just talking about. How are you going to get back on track as quickly as possible is utilizing the bounce back strategy. So a course correction is when you utilize the bounce back strategy as one of the ways you get back on course. So it's kind of like if you're on a flight and you're going from point A to point B, again, maybe you're flying to New York. When the pilot gets on the intercom and says, hey guys, I'm sorry, we've got some bad weather up ahead. We're gonna have to take a path around it. Nobody's like, what? You know, nobody's surprised by that. They might not like it. They might be kind of bummed because it's gonna prolong the time it's gonna take to get there. But everybody's expecting, you know, everybody's like, oh, okay. But the pilot says, we're going to get you back on track as quick as possible. He always says that. He doesn't throw up his hands and go, you know what, we may as well just go home, everybody, you know, or we may as well just land here, or we may as well just forget this whole thing. He doesn't ever say that. He knows that's part of the variables that come into play when you're trying to go from point A to point B. And then he says, we're going to figure out how to get back on track as quickly as possible. So that's called a course correction. How do you course correct? He figures out where he is in space right now, and distance-wise and time-wise, he collects the data. He knows where he is right now in relation to where he needs to go, and he figures out the quickest, safest, most effective path to get there as soon as possible. So let's say you get off track, whether it was intentionally like making a decision you knew that wasn't the right one for you, or it was unintentional by things that were out of your control. It doesn't matter. Many people will go down that road, as I said, of beating themselves up, feeling bad about it, or any number of things, throwing in the towel. Here's what I want you to do instead now. I want you to do what I call data collection. You are simply collecting the data for where you are now and how you got there and how you can get back on track and not let that happen again in the future. So this is a different strategy. It's a different mindset. When we went back to who you have to be so that you can do something different, this is a new mindset perhaps for some people, which is to go, oh, okay, what got me off track here? Was it that I didn't prepare ahead of time? I didn't plan enough? Is it that I don't really want what I thought I want? Is it that I need to have better time management? Whatever it is for you, you stop where you are, you pause, you step back, and you go, what went wrong here? What got me off course? Okay, now I collect that data. Is there something I can do differently next time so that I can preemptively plan out for the same kind of obstacle that I didn't see or didn't know was going to be a challenge before? Can I change that? How can I get back on track as quickly as possible? Can I change something right now, immediately? Probably you could change your mindset, right? Probably you could stop beating yourself up. Probably you could go, you know what? I'm not going to go down that same road. I'm not going to tell my same story. That's a whole nother video on the stories, but like, stop telling the same story of why you can't do what it is you say you want to do. That in itself you can change immediately. I'm going to change my story. I'm going to get back on track this time. I'm going to figure this out. If I don't know how to figure it out, I'm going to get someone to help me. I'm going to get an expert. That's why people hire me. They need an expert to help them get back on track, right? So that's part of what we do. So whatever it is that's going to help you get back on track is what you want to do immediately. So these are the tools for the planning section. What do you want to do? You want to know your overall destination of where you're going. You want to put some systems in place. You want to break down your bigger steps into daily to weekly action steps. You want to celebrate the wins, maybe create a system for streaks for yourself if it's something that requires repetitive daily things or weekly things. You want to anticipate the obstacles ahead of time and figure out a bounce back strategy for yourself. You want to remember to course correct quickly as possible and collect the data. And also from the other video, you want to remember to have a new mindset when you do these things. So that's what I would focus on. A lot of this is mindset stuff, just like in the last video. If you guys want free tips on how to change your mindset, go to my blog at youareunstoppable.net. If you want help from me, go to youareunstoppable.com. Those are two places where you can get more information, okay? So keep going, guys. Crush your health goals, and I hope this video helps.